Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mason back for episode number 5. We're very fortunate today to have Nathan Ramasarma on, the founder of Formsense. So let's bring him on, learn about Formsense and how he came to be here. What's up, Nathan?
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mason. How are you doing?
Good to see you. Where are you tuning in from today?
I'm at home here in San Diego, California.
Nice. So just start us off. Give us the basics on Formsense and what we need to know about your company.
Sure. Formsense has a very simple mission, and the mission that's close to your heart and everybody else's in the sports and health industry, and that's to maximize performance and to basically accelerate recovery for those injured, and eventually to prevent injuries from happening. We feel that this is an existential problem, not just in the sports field, but in health in general, for anybody for that matter. And so we feel that we have what it takes to do all of these in a reasonable manner, and that's our fundamental mission. For me, the word form was something that has been that's something that I've been carrying since childhood. For me, sports has always been a refuge. I tend to go play sports to get my thoughts clearer. And so, as a child playing different kinds of sports, I used to hear in the commentary that a particular player or an athlete was not in form, and that kind of stuck to me for a very long time. And when I came to this country and started pursuing certain sports and getting injured, it slowly started becoming clear to me what actually form was. And it's this all-encompassing set of metrics that you need to have as a person in order to do your job very efficiently, regardless of where you fall in the spectrum, an elite athlete or somebody like me who just wants to be active and healthy and avoid injuries, or somebody towards the later part of their life, just preventing a fall or something. And to me, form is that existential common denominator. And that is something that I have always struggled with in terms of injuries and so on. And even in my personal life, I've had family members go through injuries and not have to take advantage of what's available to them to be productive in their life. So I sought out to fix this once for all, and I'm fortunate to have the greatest team that I could have spread between San Diego, the Bay Area, and Budapest, and investors who believe in this vision of keeping people healthy, active, and injury-free through any part of their lifestyle. And that's what motivated me to start Formsense.
Okay, that's a great introduction. You have us convinced that form is important. How do you actually educate us users on our form as athletes, as people in rehab? What is special about Formsense that allows you to do that?
I mean, form, if you look at it, is something that it's a tool that helps us get our life's pursuits to come to fruition. If you're an athlete, form is existential, which means you need to take care of your only tool that you have, your body, in order to maximize your potential, your performance, to win in the game that you play, and to make yourself productive. So for me, form is different from person to person. For a sports person, it's existential. Formsense will help you demystify the things that you cannot observe with your naked eye. For example, biomechanics, how your body moves and why it moves in that manner is something that has not been addressed to the level and fidelity that Formsense is able to do today. For somebody like me, it's not as much existential as it's to understand how I sit, for example, for long durations of time working on things, to have a posture, to have something that will, over a period of time, have compounding errors, and that could eliminate certain things that I would like to do in life. So we want to help in those aspects.
How are you telling us what our form is?
Yeah, so the way we do it is we have built sensor technologies that help understand in a volumetric sense, how your body is moving. These sensors are something that you have to put on your body. We have seen several technologies that are camera-based or vision-based that can have gross understanding of how you move. But that's not sufficient, because we feel that in order to improve something, you need to be able to measure it objectively. And to measure form, which in this case is biomechanics, you need to have sensors that are on your body. We have seen attempts in doing it with respect to straps and other discrete sensors, those don't really work. And so Formsense is technology that is embedded into garments, into clothing that you can wear that don't look any different than normal legging or compression wear, that can be machine washable, for instance, and you can carry it wherever you go. And when you take it with you, it's not just a garment, it's a whole biomechanics lab that you're carrying with you. And thousands and thousands of hours of simulations and sports science have gone into building Formsense today that can, at the elitist level, help you understand how you're performing a lunge, for example. You'll be surprised to know that more than 70% of people don't know how to perform a lunge perfectly. And that can have an impact, may not be today, but over a period of time. So we are guiding people at multiple parts of the spectrum of lifestyles as to how you should perform what you're doing well in order to be successful and productive.
Gotcha. So we have a visual of the pants here on the right of the screen. And
Right.
So what you're doing, as we understand it, is taking what a motion capture lab affords that's really only accessible to people who can afford it or elite athletes, and you're putting that on the body, and you can remotely understand people's form from the hub there. Is that what I'm seeing? Yeah.
Yeah, so the pants themselves look and feel very similar to compression leggings that you would wear. These have over 20 different sensors integrated, embedded within them. You can't take them out. They're very tiny. You can't even feel them. And those sensors communicate with a small hub device that you can put on top of the fabric itself. That is the brains that has the algorithms, the machine learning framework that we have built, which real-time compute every single aspect of your movement, which is impossible for you to fathom, even if you're an experienced trainer or a therapist. And that, painted in the form of a digital avatar, real-time, helps you to make those decisions very, very quickly, depending on who you are, and to correct those incorrect form or postures that you have been doing so that you can improve it over time.
Super cool. So I think us talking about it is one thing. It may be easiest for our viewers if we just show the video so that people can better understand what you've built here.
Sure.
All right, great. So that to me introduces the product. So basically you have computer pants that can tell people how they're moving, angles of hip rotation, and there's a lot of insight. These are either for the physical therapist, the sports science director, whoever. How are you able to? So I read that it's through kinematics that you can achieve these readings. Can you explain what kinematics is and how you guys complemented the sensors with that?
Yeah, so when the human body moves, it's obviously anatomically constrained to move in a certain fashion. So we have 40 different freedoms of movement in our lower body alone. And it's important for us, at least for a trainer or a therapist, to understand at which point how flexible your joints are, how you're operating either in a normal manner or after a game when you're fatigued, if it has had an impact to your form, the way you move in terms of load, etc. So what the pants allow the trainer or the therapist to see, either real time or after the fact, is how your body has been performing in terms of all your joints, all your abilities to move in a certain way, whether good or not. And this way, we are presenting an objective view to the therapist or the trainer. So that way, they don't have to subjectively guess what's happening to your body. And they can take corrective action, or they can even buy time, which otherwise they would not be able to do in normal circumstances, because they just don't have that kind of data in order to make educated decisions on how your protocols should be like in an individual basis. Because previously, it was just a broad brushstroke. Everybody would be asked to do an exercise or a routine in a certain manner without any feedback to the trainer or therapist. And they would not really be able to say what was going wrong in a very granular manner. This way, the guesswork is completely thrown out. So now an objective understanding of where you are with respect to your own baseline, if you're an athlete, is very crucial, because you could be performing in a level different to somebody else in your team, and you can either improve or not, but that has to be a decision that can be made by the therapist or the trainer. And now they have the power and the ability to do so in a more reasonable manner otherwise.
Gotcha. So we have a question from Tim Stays. He asks, does the baseline form change with each individual?
Generally speaking, everybody's form is different. No matter how your body is built, age group, whatever that might be, that changes. And form changes over a period of time as well. Let's say you gain weight. If you gain weight, your center of mass changes potentially. And so if you were to be performing the same routine in the same intensity, there could be adverse effects. I mean, we have seen so many such examples, but this has got to the point where you're trying to demystify what is so special about you that is different from somebody else. So that, to the point of earlier, what I said earlier is, unless you know something that can be measured objectively, you just cannot make improvements. So the tool allows you to have your own biomechanics lab, and somebody else has their own biomechanics lab. So the baselines can be adjusted according to what the trainer or the therapist thinks that you need to be following. So that way there is no generalization, and over a period of time, you will see that every person's form has its own individual baseline that they have been monitoring over a period of time and adjusting according to things that they can monitor. For example, if you say that you are stressed, or if a part of your body is strained, then they can adjust thresholds accordingly. But those adjustments don't really translate to somebody else, and they shouldn't. Today, that's the biggest problem, is that everybody is normalized to a certain routine. I mean, think of rehab, for instance, which is one of the things that I took to heart, because when I was going through rehab, what my therapist would show me is a piece of paper with stick figures, maybe some YouTube videos, and that's about it. What's missing there is this feedback loop of what I actually did and how. Because if they would know that, and at the granular level, they could probably give me a bespoke protocol that would work very well for me and may not be necessarily the same for somebody else. I think that's where data-driven insights are going in sports technology or in health. We have just taken a very giant leap right now across everything. The measurement mechanism, the deployment of the sensors in something so organic that you don't feel any different wearing them versus your training pants. And then finally, a higher order insight, not just data, because gone are the days when people need to be told what they already did, including athletes. This is the era of wearables where people need to be told what to do next, and maybe 10 more steps beyond that. That's the level of insight I think we need to be providing, and we are doing it, hopefully, with this platform.
Okay, so in addition, from the video that we showed, it looked like you can tell people their form and give measurements to that, but there's also some other insights that your technology gives. Can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, so a lot of times we have seen people take certain sensors, use it for a certain specific reason, and then that's it. One of the biggest challenges sports teams specifically face today is that technology is at their disposal in many ways. You can measure load of an athlete by using a GPS sensor and monitor how much they ran on the field, how many times they've exerted in a certain manner, and so on. And that's fine. There are some other sensors that build heart rate monitoring or some other kinds of biometric that also give you an insight into player availability or athlete availability. What we think of form is the foundation where you could today, with using biomechanics, provide a very high order of insight into how they move and why they move. And over a period of time, multiple other types of sensing can be added to give you other juxtapositions of these kinds of insights, which are even more valuable. So that's one thing that we are already doing. Even within the context of biomechanics, there are so many things that we can do with science, with data, that can eliminate the need for discrete products. For instance, if you were to be jumping on a force plate, which is a very common product across professional sports teams that I have seen be used. One, it's not portable. You can't carry it wherever you go. Two, it just does that one thing alone, which is to measure how much of a force you apply on a single force plate. While that is useful, what we decided was using inverse kinematics. We try to estimate how much force you must have applied by the way you move. And so it's very counterintuitive to some degree, but it actually makes sense because at the end of the day, if you can measure somebody's movement at a very high degree of accuracy, you can deduce many second or third order benefits of measuring that at that level. And so with Formsense Pro today, you don't need force plates, technically speaking, because although you cannot measure absolute force, we tell you whether you're symmetric, your movements are symmetric, or you have a balance problem with your hips, or if you're skewed in one particular movement versus the other. These are things that we can very easily demonstrate instantly, that too, so it doesn't require any post-processing. So our objective is to keep teams, to let them do what they do very well, which is take care of their athletes, make them available for play, and to keep them successful on the field. And everything else in terms of data, in terms of understanding what's going underneath, we want to be able to provide them.
So I want to highlight the point you made there, just so our viewers didn't miss it. For now, as athletes, and even in like CGI studios, motion capture labs, you put on a bunch of bulbs, you get in a tight-fitting suit, and you go through the motions, and then they can compute and process your movements and get back to you later. What Nathan's able to do is in real time tell you the exact measurements of your form. Another thing that I thought was really cool when I was testing the new Formsense Pro was your ability to tell me which exercises I was doing. So just very fundamentally, if right now during the virus, our strength and conditioning coach Felipe, he's asking what we're doing. Well, he can look, if I'm wearing the pants, he could see, okay, Mason did 3 sets of 10 on the squat. He did X number of RDLs, which I think is really cool and insightful, especially for athletes who always have an off season that they want to spend elsewhere, unless they're playing Miami, LA. Okay, so we have another question from the audience. Joshua Averill asks, what does the data look like? Don't you have to have tons of athletes participating to understand ideal form?
Yeah, so the way we identify what your form is by fundamentally looking at the anatomical possibilities of the human body. One of the big things that we have done in the past few years is to actually virtualize the entire human body itself, and to be able to generate near infinite possibilities of the way the body can move. And by using literature that already tells us what are the right ways of doing things versus the wrong ways of doing things, and that's already published material, for instance, you can tell how many multiple ways of doing a squat are there, and which of those are good for you, which others are not necessarily optimal for you. For instance, there are so many metrics that have come up over the past 10, 15 years, like FMS, which give you a good objective rating or grading of how you perform something. We have already been looking at those, and they're all compatible with our platform to say, okay, now if you were to grade your lunge, we'll be able to do it real time, right away, not just by telling it that I've done a lunge. We eliminate that level of cumbersome process as well, in that, to your point, using machine learning, we're able to tell you exactly what you did. So you could be doing a set of 15 different exercises, no matter what, and we could segment exactly what you did and how you did them, either based on an existing gradation that's broadly accepted, like FMS or something else, or something that your own team wants to create for itself. And oftentimes, teams have their own ways of understanding what is relevant for their players. So this tool is essentially that. So we don't want to eliminate or distance the therapist or the trainer. They're actually the most important part of this equation. What we want to give them is the absolute best set of data points and ability to tweak it according to what they see on a daily basis with each athlete. And that way, their time is spent not on taking laborious notes or writing things on the whiteboard, but to focus on very, very clearly, what is your problem, how do I solve it, and how do I make it better the next time?
So Nathan, who are some of the pro sports? You don't have to give us the specific teams, but what organizations, what leagues are you working with to roll out Formsense?
As you can imagine, I mean, the moment we created Formsense in its entirety, the entire world was the marketplace for us. Because everywhere you look, all the way from an Audi automobile factory where there is a lot of repetitive motion to sports to health, there is wide applicability. So we had to start somewhere. So we started with sport because we feel the need is the strongest. The appetite to consume data-driven insights is also there for a majority of teams. So we started working with teams in the NBA, with the MLS, with the English Premier League, and a lot of our learnings have actually been because we started working with them on day one, even before the product was built. Because we are a bunch of scientists, technologists, some of us are recreational athletes, data scientists. We understand data, we understand technology. What was missing was the on the field, on the ground insight and pain points that was very crucial for us to build this product right. So we've been working with a ton of these teams, professional athletes, sports scientists, trainers, therapists, who are either associated with teams or independently speaking. And we've been heads down literally for the past several years, just perfecting this to a point where now we are ready to take the next steps and make it more broadly available to sports teams. But that's just the starting. The open market ahead for us is literally every single vertical that you can imagine where human body is the tool, essentially.
Gotcha. So what went into that decision to, was sports like an ultimate validator, or did you go into, did you consider direct to consumer or the prosumer who wants super insight into their lifting regimen or their running every day? What ultimately led you to pro sports instead of those?
There are two things. One, we wanted to deploy this to the right cohort of users first and not get enticed by a larger market per se with respect to prosumers or consumers. We will get there, but the most important part for us was to go where it's absolutely necessary and demands a very, very high order of fidelity, both in terms of accuracy, usability, and extensibility of the platform. And sport has been one such thing for the most part in the consumer market that usually people look up to say, if it has worked in the professional sports market, chances are that it will definitely percolate down to the other layers of professional consumers or other broad-based consumers. We have seen that happen with multiple products. We've seen that with the Theragun. We've seen that with the Kinesio tape and many, many such products that start out at the elite level, and over a period of time, they figure out that it is a product worth deploying to a much larger base of consumers over a period of time. So that's what we're trying to do.
Just kidding. Can you take us through the video yourself and explain what we're seeing here on the video? I know we've shown it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what the Formsense Pro pants look like. They look no different from a legging. You can wear it wherever you go. As you're playing, as you're performing routines, whether live or structured, it real time delivers all of the 40 or 50 different freedoms of movement for your lower body, showing you ranges of motion, compensation for all your joints, not just one, objectively without any error, without requiring post-processing, so that either somebody is looking at you real time on an iPad or somebody is just gathering all of this once you come back to the gym and assessing where you may have gone beyond a certain threshold, beyond a certain baseline, without having to pour through multiple data sets, without having to have any ambiguity on whether their deductions are correct or not. And that's how the platform is currently deployed. So pre-game in the case of activation, during the game, because when you're in the game, you potentially don't think about how you move. So that's when a lot of the injuries do happen, which are preventable. And then after the game, as you try to evaluate markers associated with biomechanics of your athlete, we want to give you sort of a delta as to, hey, what did the game actually do to your biomechanics? Did it change over a period of time or not? And then finally, in terms of injury, if you do get injured, if you have the risk of being injured, a much more focused ability for you to go drill down into specific markers and focus on them alone, either in a real-time manner, assuming you're with the athlete, or even remotely for that matter. And today, the need of the hour is unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 situation, is that there is so much displacement between stakeholders in the sport or in the health field. And we feel that Formsense Pro is a very huge enabler for multiple stakeholders. I mean, one of our product managers sent out a survey just earlier this week, And we've got phenomenal response across trainers, therapists, sports scientists who are struggling to even get the basic information from their athletes to saying, hey, what did you actually do today? And so, we are going to give them so much more insight into how the athletes are coping, how is this displacement either affecting them or not, so that they can actually help them. All of this is going towards helping athletes and eventually helping the team get back into the game and doing what they do best. And delivering this in a remote manner is a very important thing for us to consider, and we're doing all of that.
Gotcha. And I understand it as an athlete. I know the wearables that we use now. I know a lot of people are trying to achieve share in the market of wearable technology. But can you take us through, to me, what's exciting? I'm from the orthopedic capital of the world, Warsaw, Indiana. They make artificial knees, hips, joints. A lot of companies that are doing that. Take me through what the future of rehab looks like post-surgery when I've just gotten a knee replacement.
I think rehab is a huge, huge problem, and not just in the US, but worldwide. I think it's medieval. The entire experience for rehab is medieval. If for somebody like me who's just going through normal rehab due to normal injury, you can imagine the impact of rehab for somebody who goes through a knee replacement. And that actually happened to my own family, where I saw a family member go through a knee replacement. And because their rehab journey sucked, in that there was no closed loop, it was no better than a piece of paper that seemed photocopied 50 times with stick figures. It was impossible for me to see them confined to a wheelchair when they should be actually running around with brand new knees. So to me,
typically, like, how many times can you meet with your PT after you've had a surgery like that?
Usually, aside from all the systemic issues, which there are tons of in this country especially, you're typically given a certain amount of sessions with a PT after your surgery. And that is gated by the insurance company, gated by your service provider, and so on. Now, what happens when you go to your physical therapy appointment, let's say on day one after your surgeries, they tell you what's happened with your knee, in this case, what kind of rehab schedule or protocol you need to follow at home. Guess what? 90 to 95% of your success post-injury is based on what you do at home or at work, not when you meet with your physical therapist or trainer. That's when they need to know what next to be done. But then the problem is already 7 to 10 days have elapsed between those sessions. And whatever you do at home is not just impossible for anybody else to figure out, but impossible to figure out what you're doing and how. So in this case, for somebody who goes through a knee replacement, Formsense Pro will just be, hey, take the suit, wear it on a daily basis, or when where your therapist or trainer wants you to wants you to put them on, and do your protocol so that it guides you real time, much like how the Formsense platform guides the athlete in order to prevent injuries. The context here is that you're already injured, you're getting new knees. How do you get back in form? Because there is a retrospect, right? Think about it as a Windows, boot up situation, right? You must have gone through this many times in your life. It gives you a retrospect of when back you need to go to reset your computer and download that kind of a software on it. This is the same thing. Form is existential. If you had good form, you had a surgery, or you broke something, you need to get back to where you were. And if you did not know how you were before, it's impossible to get back to that position to begin with. Good. So this is very, very important for joint replacements and things of that nature, where it's every day matters, essentially, after your surgery.
So, obviously, and with the pandemic going on, I could see a lot of use for Formsense in the here and now. But what's some advice that you would give to other founders and entrepreneurs who are going through what we are right now?
I don't think I'm an expert in general. I've gone through these kinds of things in the past, and I don't know if it is the same for everybody, but this is a black swan event, COVID-19 specifically. Nobody knows the extent to which this is good or bad in any way, which way you look at it. So there's going to be a 9 to 12 month period where this gets played out. In that period, there's going to be mass panic across the board. People are literally struggling to get their day job done. Companies are looking at whether they will, literally survive for the next 6 to 9 months. So my general advice, no matter who you are, is first get the panic out of the picture. There are a lot of things that you do need to take into account, whether you're a founder or somebody else. But first, the only thing you should not be doing is panic, because fear is the ultimate problem here. You just don't want to be fearful of anything. This is something that is out of your control, right? None of us invented COVID. The only thing we can do is to stay calm, focus on what matters in our case, or in any founder situation. Focus on your customer, go to where they need you the most and deliver that. Give them that trust, to build the trust, and you will see that you will be successful no matter what. The last thing you want to do is panic and react and do something totally orthogonal, and that will potentially end up biting you later on. That's just my 2 cents on this.
Okay, so we have one more audience question. We have Dan O'Brien from the Players Association. He wants to know, what has been some of the feedback from athletes who have utilized Formsense? Have they used mostly the rehab setting, lifts, practice? How does the sizing work?
Sure, I'll try to address this in parts. The feedback has been phenomenal. Every single athlete across the spectrum has been looking at this as something that they had envisioned as the future of something, either training or therapy or prevention of something else. The fact that we built it from the ground up means that we're not trying to put a band-aid to the problem in terms of a solution. For example, small things really impact the success of a product. Technology for the sake of technology is not what we're trying to do here. Deploying sensors in a form factor that is organically suited for any athlete, like a compression-based leg, that was so critical. Formsense as a foundational technology was available. We had made it available 2 years ago, but we were not satisfied until we had integrated into Fabric, which is so essential to plug that behavioral change gap. Because the last thing you want to do is to have people change behavior. It just does not work, no matter who you are. So that way, every athlete knows that all that they're doing is nothing different than wearing typical tights. And then the trust factor between them and the therapist or the trainer is now transparent, because now everybody knows what's going on. So there's no concept of, just because you said it, I don't think I'm this way. Because typically that's what tends to happen. In terms of how the usage is, I think that's a broad spectrum. It depends on the team. It depends on what your focus is and who the stakeholder is. If your focus today is to understand, fundamentally speaking, what your form is across different routines, because it can change, then that's what they like it for. For those who are already injured, and we've gone through some of those examples too, is to seeing how best this can be brought back to, this person can be brought back to the field. Because that's the name of the game. If you cannot have player availability, then the team suffers. Team suffers because they cannot get enough games to win, and that's ultimately what they're after.
Gotcha.
In terms of lifts practice, yes. So I'll give you a typical example, which is very pertinent to now, where every single thing that you use to increase your performance is available to you. You have a tonal, you have a Peloton, you have a Polar, you name what. What we end up doing is we give you the potential to do whatever else you want to do after. So you may be on the Peloton bike, but our message to you is do whatever you want, but don't ignore your form. Because that's the worst thing you can do, is to showcase that you're so great at a certain kind of a performance on a bike or a lift or whatever that might be, strength training, but you may not realize that you have compounding errors to your form that will ultimately make your performance moot, right, in many ways. So we have seen this as the essential prerequisite to no matter what you do in terms of measuring your performance, whether you're an athlete or somebody else. Sizing, typically size like any other garment, depending on who you are. People like you, Mason, for example, you will need the taller versions of most of these things, but otherwise these size exactly like typical leggings, if you will, and so on in the marketplace.
So I was fortunate to go to Budapest and meet your team this summer. Can we put the picture up of the team and give them a shout out, as I'm sure they'll tune in and check us out when they wake up tomorrow. Okay, we have one more audience question. Do you have to be a professional athlete to purchase the Formsense leggings? And I'll add to that, where can people go if they want to learn more about okay, hold on. We got one more quick interjection. We have Ali Hashimi there on the bottom right from Polymath Ventures, who's backing Formsense, good friend, and very involved in your development, as I understand.
Yeah, Ali has been instrumental in our trajectory. He's a board member, also through founder of Polymath Ventures, who's backed us since day one. Interestingly enough, very quickly, my introduction to Ali was not because of a founder-investor relationship, but more about a founder-customer relationship. Ali ran the largest subacute rehab centers in the Middle East, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and we just happened to be there for a variety of things. And he put us to the test even before putting a single dollar in our company, where we showed him the promise of what Formsense could be one day. And we have not even scratched the surface, by the way. And so he has been super instrumental in guiding us in every step of the way. So a big shout to Ali. The question on the purchasing aspect of Formsense. So as I mentioned earlier, the focus for today for us in terms of a company is to solve a massive problem in the elite athlete space that are associated with a particular team. But very soon we'll be opening it up to independent athletes who are either amateur or training towards becoming a professional, but we'll need to wait a little bit because there are so many systemic things we need to solve before we even feel ready to deploy this. Believe it or not, I would readily deploy this today if I wanted to, but there are things that we need to figure out in terms of whether this is extensible beyond a certain thing or not. The cost standpoint needs to be validated over a period of time so that whatever you purchase as an individual, it makes sense from an investment standpoint. So
Nathan, can you explain, do you guys plan on making the athleisure yourself, or do you just want to afford the technology and insight to the clothing brands that already exist?
Given a choice, we would not have done it. To be honest, this is not our core competency. We do have an excellent soft goods expert in our team who had worked previously for the North Face and so on. So we had to actually build this ourselves because there wasn't an opportunity to take something that's already readily available. So we had to build it. We had to build wearable technologies from the ground up, integrate sensors on top of that so that you won't feel a difference. So a lot of R&D went into it. However, the future of this is something that we're looking at in two ways. One, we don't want to be the only brand that supports Formsense technology. That does not help us with our massive vision that's in front of us. This can only work in the manner that we envision if every single brand, every single service provider in the sport or health field or industrial field has the opportunity to deploy Formsense in what they do best. So a Nike or an Under Armour or whoever else that might be in the athleisure space should have the opportunity to deploy Formsense powered something. That's our vision. So that way we get the scale, the ability for us to reach a larger audience, to the earlier point of anybody purchasing these leggings. And two, the diversity of that data is what ultimately powers the platform to become even more suitable for a variety of applications. Because eventually you're going to look at 100 million people wearing this. You're not going to have 100 million trainers or therapists working with them. That will never happen. So we want to be able to leverage data over a period of time to help not just detether the athlete or patient from the therapist or the trainer, but give them much more opportunities to work together so that the time they spend together is used for better purposes, not just to evaluate what they did previously, which could be doubtful.
Gotcha. Well, this is all very cool, Nathan. We appreciate you coming on. Is there any last words you want to leave for your fellow founders?
As I said before, these are very, very trying times. You just need to stay focused on your vision, to not deviate from it to the extent possible. You don't need to make existential changes here and there. That's understandable. But your vision is what you started the company for. Do not compromise that. Go for the long game. Go for the infinite game. And surround yourself with people that are 10 times smarter and more motivated than you are. And that's what I have been blessed with. In fact, I'm not the smartest person by a stretch of imagination. And the only lucky thing I've got going is I have that team around me, both from an investor standpoint, advisor standpoint, and the team themselves. That keeps me going. That keeps me getting up every single morning and doing the best I can. So in these trying times, you need to do that 10 times more so that you come out, to the words of, I guess, Katy Perry or somebody, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? So this is the existential moment for us, right? If it doesn't kill you, you're going to come out of this much more stronger. But to that, key is focus, stay true to your vision, do not shortchange yourself, and just work 10 times harder. It's just a short period, but you have to get there. Because like my mother says, everything, there is success just around the corner. But you have to make that turn. If you don't make that turn, success is not going to come back to you and present it to yourselves. So you have to hard struggle and get through this phase. If for those people in the sports field, athletes, trainers, therapists, if there's anything we can do as Formsense to help you through these tough times, please reach out. Go to our website, www.formsense.com, or you can even leave them with my email address later on, and they're more than welcome to reach me. If I can help, we will absolutely do so.
Awesome. Well, that's very generous of you, Nathan. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing what you guys are working on, and we look forward to seeing you change a couple different industries going forward.
Thank you so much, Mason. Thanks to all your viewers for taking the time today, and stay safe and healthy.
For sure. Thanks, Nathan.
Bye-bye.